Hey, I'm Carson Slowback.
And I'm Grant McFarlane, and we're from Atrium Audio.
The way I got started in music was I was just really interested in being in bands myself. I was in a few bands that toured, released some albums, and just the whole process of recording was super intriguing to me very early on, and I just got really obsessed with recording music and mixing music, and kind of started to just slowly build up some gear, you know, as one does, and recording friends' bands for free, and then starting to charge as I got better at it, and as, you know, word got out that there was, you know, a guy recording in town, and started renting a studio in downtown Lancaster, and that's where I actually recorded Grant's band that he was in, and we have known each other ever since and been in bands together, and eventually started working together.
I first started getting into music when I was 4. My childhood, I was brought up in a household with a musical family, so my brother played cello, my sisters played violin, my mom played piano, my dad tuned and repaired pipe organ, so like the whole family was doing music, and around high school, college era, started playing in some bands, and one of my bands recorded a demo with Carson, and that's how I met him. And not too long after that, I started getting into recording on my own because I needed to figure out a way to sort of demo and write my own band's material. And showed it to Carson one day, and I was like, hey, you know, what do you think of this? Do you have any pointers? Is this cool? And he's like, sounds great, you should come work with me. And ever since then, we've been working together. And now here we are, years later. We've been in like 7 different studios and have made countless records together.
I love music so much, you know, it's such a huge part of my life, and just to be able to work in that capacity, first and foremost, that's the best thing for me, is just being able to do this for a job. And especially, you know, when you get an opportunity to work with a band or an artist that you're a big fan of. We've had that opportunity a couple times, and it's the best, because not only are you doing what you want to do, but you're doing it with artists that you actually really enjoy.
I feel like one of the biggest challenges in producing and engineering music is balancing being a creative, but then also being an engineer, being the person that knows not only, you know, all of the intricate, you know, details of what frequency you want to scoop out at a certain point, or what ratio you want to compress something at, but also just like what sounds cool, you know, like putting your taste into it and balancing that, especially when you're in the hot seat with a client and you have to make decisions quickly and effectively, because I feel like a big part of how you get work and how you know, grow as an engineer and what makes people want to come to you is that you can do all that stuff, but you can do it fast. And so you sort of have to wear a lot of hats all at once. And it's just a lot that you have to kind of keep in check and balance as you're doing everything. And
it's hard to be technically focused and creative in the same moment.
Right, yeah. It's sort of like a very whole-brained activity.
Yeah, it's left brain, right brain stuff, because it's you have to be good at kind of switching between the two, you know? Because I know for me, if I'm really dug in on some technical thing, I'm not going to be creative in that moment, you know? And being able to kind of switch out of that and get back into, you know, okay, what do I think this part needs? It's easier said than done. For me, the biggest challenge is just being able to get good at the psychology that's involved in producing music, because every artist is different, and the artist-producer relationship it can be a fragile one, you know, and it can be one that has a lot of tension in it, and sometimes that tension's good, but you know, I think that for the most part, for me, I find that artists do the best work when I go out of my way to make them comfortable. Show them that we're just 2 people or me and a group of people, and we're just trying to collaboratively be artistic together and make music together. And the really challenging thing is getting good at navigating personalities and being able to communicate effectively with people and understand what they want and what you need to do to tactfully get there. So that's definitely a challenge for me, and I think it's something that if you get good at, you'll get better results, being able to read the room, so to speak. The most important thing is to be excited about it, in my opinion. If you're sitting in a room with an artist and you're both listening to the song you've worked on together and you're both getting excited, that's the feeling that I'm trying to.
You're looking for that moment where like the hair raises on your arm.
Exactly.
And then you're like,
that's you have something good.
Yeah.
And when everyone in the room simultaneously comes to the same conclusion, that like, oh, that was awesome. Those moments is what I'm going for. If you can do that as much as possible, have those moments, then you've got something good. And again, it's a collaborative process, and finding the right vibe, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's extremely crucial. At the end of the day, the art is going to suffer if the vibe isn't right, while you're creating it. And I think to me that's like the key thing.
I think the other thing we try to keep in mind too is does our mix hang with other mixes? I mean, that's an important thing. You want to just double check it against everything and see, like, not necessarily like does it sound the same, but like,
are you bummed when you A/B it to yours?
Ideally,
is it a step down, or is it like, oh, this hangs with it,
or it sounds better.
Right, or it sounds better. Having points of reference is super important.
When you get so locked into like, your snare EQ or your compressor, and you're just like working on that for like 15 minutes, but then you listen to the whole mix, you don't really have that like objective, stance on it anymore.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've mixed myself into a hole where I can't get out of it. I think something sounds amazing, and then it's just like I get up and go out to my car, and put something else on and A/B it, and it's like,
the A/B to me is crucial. It's a huge part of mixing, because it just really helps you very quickly kind of be able to make a conclusive decision if you're on the right track or not, or if you've even improved upon something.
For sure.
Technology, I feel, drives many industries, including music, and is constantly changing the landscape. I mean, if you think back to, the 1970s, where the only way that you could record music was with a console and a tape machine, and the guy that had the amazing $2 million studio. And now, anyone can record with a laptop. So people have the access to all these tools that they didn't have before. And I mean, you look at Grammy award-winning artists like Billie Eilish. Her brother produced that album with a laptop in like their living room. And you don't have to have all this stuff here, to do that. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily about the equipment as much as it is the person creating it. And I think a lot of people sometimes lose sight on that. And it's really what you put into it and your artistic creativity and your vision that is going to make something what it is. They say it's not the gear, it's the ear, and I think that really does apply.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that I always, come back to, is that it's kind of a humbling thing, because no matter how good you think you get at recording and producing music, the technology is constantly changing. ControlHub stuff and the ToneHub stuff is a perfect example of this. Like 15 years ago when we started, if we had these tools, it would have been an absolute game changer. Like, obviously, because technology has just come that far. And, I feel like I'm constantly learning new methods and new techniques, learning about new plugins or new this or that, whatever. There's always something more to learn.
My go-to signal chain that I've been using for years actually is I have a Manley reference cardioid mic going into an Avalon 737 preamp into the Universal Audio 1176 FET compressor. That's just kind of been my go-to, and I've tried a lot of other options. I've shot out tons of stuff over the years, and every time I just kind of really like the way that this signal chain sounds, and so that's 99% of the time what I use. In the box, in Pro Tools afterwards, sometimes we'll even use more of the same style compressor. It just really depends how hard we want to squash it. So, I'll do some on the way in and then might add more later, just depending on the mix. But the cool thing is, we've also been able to model, the kinds of EQ that we'd be using and specific EQ curves that are specific to our signal processing inside of Pro Tools. And then, you've got saturation and reverb and delay and things of that nature as well. And so all of that is baked into the vocal presets that we're using.
Yeah, so typically on, at least using drums as an example, a go-to signal chain of mine would be gain staging each of the individual tracks, typically with shells a lot louder than the cymbals, because when I hit my drum bus compressor, cymbals will be brought up, but the effect it has on the shells is what I'm really looking for. And then essentially a lot of EQ on individual tracks, and then I'll just kind of bus everything to a drum bus with some parallel compression on it. I have some go-to plugins for that. I really like the Shep's parallel particles on the drum bus, and the soft tube FET compressor, another favorite go-to of mine. I use a lot of SSL style EQ, and now we have an SSL console, which is great because that's kind of my favorite, colorful EQ, if you will. With this expansion pack, people can expect basically very good starting points for a lot of different processing applications, from individual tracks to different instrument groups to the whole mix bus to a mastering chain. It's essentially a one-stop shop for all the different types of signal chains that you might want to apply to anything within your mix.
I think with any producer, there's always going to be choices that are made differently. And with this ControlHub pack, what you're really going to get is our unique stamp on, what we think a kick drum should sound like, or a rhythm guitar. I don't know that anyone is going to, go to the same piece of equipment or the same plugin or the combination of plugins. And that's actually the cool thing about ControlHub, is that it takes the entire signal chain from beginning to end. So you're actually getting all of the post-processing that's going to be done to a signal source and our particular flavor that we put into a mix. And so this plugin is really unique in that way because it's really going after someone's specific opinion rather than, just like, here's a piece of gear. It's like, well, no, here's what this person would do with it.
If you enjoy some of the recordings we've made, then our presets in this expansion pack are going to be in line with those same types of choices.
I think people will really like this expansion pack for the ability to just very quickly get a full signal chain for something. With one click, you can pull up the plugin and, try to find the preset you're looking for, and it gets you 99% of the way there. Your source material is going to be a little different than the original source material that was used to create that preset. So ultimately, you might have to do some quick adjustments in terms of, input gain, or, maybe, some thresholds and things of that nature, or, but it's just a really quick way to get to the desired result, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, is, especially if you're trying to be creative in that moment, you just really want to hear how it's going to sound. So
yeah,
I think
you can bypass the technical stuff and just kind of get to the creative stuff. And again, these are all starting points. They're suggestions with certain people's taste baked into it. The cool thing about ControlHub, though, is that you can have that starting point and then tweak it further. It's not just like, here's a snapshot of this specific preset and it's limited. And it has all this leverage for you to change it. So that, to me, is very powerful. The ControlHub presets transfer over from the original signal chains very well. And it's crazy to me that I was able to sit down and open up a session that was done all in the box and essentially replace all of the plugins with instances of ControlHub. It's insane how quickly we got there, and the power of ControlHub in general, I think, it's pretty mind-blowing.